So welcome to Potomac Presbyterian Church for our Berger lecture with organist Dr. Carol Williams. We are delighted to welcome back those who were with us last evening for a remarkable organ concert that Dr. Carol gave as we dedicated our new Viscount digital organ. We're also, of course, delighted to welcome those who were unable to attend the concert last evening and those who may be new to our community. Today, we're gathered thanks to the Frederick Berger Lecture Endowment. And so before we introduce our speaker, I want to first share a bit about who is Fred Berger. Frederick Ernst Berger was a member of this congregation in the 1980s, and an endowment was set up as a way to honor the man and his Christian faith and his dedication to faith formation. Fred Berger was a loving husband to his wife, Zeedee Berger, who's here with us today. Welcome, Zeedee. And to their two sons, Christian Frederick and Jonathan Matthew, who I learned both are living in California now. Fred Berger studied at Columbia University, majoring in sociology, and then at Stanford University, getting a degree in macroeconomics under Professor Ronald McKinnon. Fred Berger's primary interest was international macroeconomics and economic development for countries in transition to fiscal federalism. Fred's ultimate goal in his work was to encourage free exchange, to accelerate economic development through proper regulation of banks and financial institutions so that poorer countries could participate in the global and regional monetary systems, utilizing the world dollar standard. And Fred Berger was able to accomplish his life's goals through his work at the Organization of American States and the World Bank. So from those institutions, he organized and developed missions to Mexico, Thailand, Chile, and other countries to help establish a free market capitalism model. The Berger family joined Potomac Presbyterian Church in 1982, and then shortly after, Fred became an active member of our adult education program. And his ideas and questions about why are we here at church and what's the focus continue to this day to help our church, to help the church uncover our mission in the world. And I'm told music was very important to Fred. And as we see it this year, we're using music as one way to address those questions that Fred was raising when he was a part of the adult education community. Fred fell sick in April 1986 with a cerebral glioblastoma, and he died 5 months later. So after his passing, this memorial lecture was established by his family and by the church to provide for the presentation of an outstanding speaker to address the congregation and community on contemporary issues from a theological perspective. And so we are so grateful to you, Zeedee, and to your family that we can continue to honor Fred's legacy in this way and continue his quest for understanding the service of the church in the country and in the world. So we are also super grateful to Dr. Carol Williams, our Berger lecturer this year. And I'm going to turn the podium over to our Director of Music and organist, Sam Gray, to introduce Dr. Carol.
Good morning. Thank you for that, Ed. Dr. Carol Williams is an internationally celebrated concert organist and composer whose musical brilliance, warmth, and infectious sense of joy have captivated audiences across the globe and all of us who were in attendance last night. Born into Britain in a musical Welsh family, she was reading music before English and gave her first recitals across the UK as a young child. By 5, she was already at the organ bench. By 8, she was performing to astonished audiences, and her path toward a world-class career was unmistakable. Carol trained at the Royal Academy of Music under David Sanger, winning every major organ performance prize, earning advanced diplomas in organ and piano, and studying harpsichord with Virginia Black. She went on to study in Paris with the legendary Daniel Roth, earned her artist diploma and Charles Ives Prize at Yale with Thomas Murray, and completed her DMA at the Manhattan School of Music under McNeill Robinson, receiving the prestigious Helen Cohn Award. She's a Fellow of the Royal College of Organists, Fellow of Trinity College London, Associate of the Royal College of Music, and was later honored as an Associate of the Royal Academy of Music. Carol made history as the world's first woman to serve as a civic organist, holding the celebrated post in San Diego, where she also led the Spreckels International Organ Concert Series, the largest of its kind in North America. Now based in England with her husband Carrie, she continues to perform on the world's great organs, spanning across the US, Europe, Asia, and beyond. On screen, Carol is widely known as the charismatic host and creator, with her husband Carrie, of the widely loved documentary series Tour Bus and the engaging interview show On the Bench with Dr. Carol, which we recorded an episode this past Thursday here at PPC, where she brings audiences into the musical worlds and stories behind this, the king of instruments. Her performances have included concerts for Princess Diana, the Virgil Fox Memorial, the 10th anniversary of the Walt Disney Concert Hall organ, and countless acclaimed international festival appearances. Yet despite all the grandeur, her mission remains refreshingly heartfelt, and one that definitely shares inspiration and touches my heart, which is to share classical organ with new audiences, to uplift spirits, and to make music feel alive, joyfully, and wonderfully human. Please welcome Dr. Carol Williams.
Good morning, everybody. It doesn't sound like me, all of that. I have been playing music, as Sam said, for a very, very long time, and I'm not sure I can live up to your husband's expertise for this lecture. I hope I can. But I've always played. I haven't given many lectures in my life, done master classes, but it'll be fun this morning to talk about music and this very fine organ. So when I was in San Diego for 15, 16 years, every concert, some of you have probably been to San Diego, I'm sure, might have heard the outdoor organ in Balboa Park. All the concerts are free, and they work on donations, which hit me after about my first month there, because you certainly cannot play anything boring in San Diego, because you have tourists walking through the park, going to the Japanese tea garden, going for a cup of tea, getting an ice cream, and think, oh, what's that noise coming from over there? And they go and sit and listen to the organ. But if you play some way out, boring piece of, I'm not going to say a composer's name because I might insult somebody, but if you play something way out, they won't stay. So I learned very quickly you had to play what would keep people in their seats. And it actually is what music I like as well, because I've grown up playing every type of music. So I would play things like this. This is not a piece for a Sunday morning. Then you could go into a really exciting piece of Bach. So you'd think, oh, wow, that is cool. But if you started with Bach, they'd probably get up and go and get an ice cream. So that's how I learned very fast. So I've got a couple of topics here that we're going to go through at high speed regarding the organ. If you have any questions, I guess you can ask me. Yeah, you can. And if I can answer them, I will. If I can't, well, I won't. So let's think about the organ. The organ is one of the oldest instruments in history. It goes right back to Greek times. Used in the Roman arenas when they were slaughtering the Christians. It's terrible when you think about that. They used to use a portative organ and play music. Well, I don't know what they played, we don't know that. But that's why the organ got a very bad sort of name for a long time and was not in the church. So, but then you think about the organ through the history, and it got involved in the church and has now become one of the iconic parts of a church. And then you think about the very early organs where it would take like 10, on a very big organ like Saint-Sulpice, if you get a chance ever to go upstairs into the organ loft, you can see the original bellows of the organ. And it would take 5 people to get the air through the organ pipes to make the organ work. And with my hours of practice, I would have driven I would have driven that team of people nuts trying to do my rehearsing. And they used to pay people in beer back then. That's how they would pay people, things like that. But then you think of the development of the organ, with people doing that, and it was always a very advanced instrument. And then you think of an instrument like this. I can't think of another instrument other than the organ that has come from just pressing a note and making a sound to an organ like this, which is fully computerized and is extremely sensitive. There isn't another instrument, is there? Can anybody think of one? I can't. Can you, Sam? It is an amazing, and it will carry on developing. I'm sure somebody like Bach, there are musicians who like to play Bach as he intended, which is fine, you know, but if I dare use any orchestral sounds or anything like that, they would get really upset thinking, Bach never had those sounds. But you got to remember that Bach was designing organs. So if he emerged now, which could be possible with what they're doing with AI, I guess, if he emerged now and sat and played this, I bet he would adore it. I really do. So some of the key organ builders throughout the history of music, and I've just got a few iconic builder names here. So in Germany, during the Baroque period, which is like 1600 to 1750, you had the builders like Schnitger, Silbermann. Their instruments still exist, and I've had the privilege of playing these organs. And to me, what's fascinating, today we communicate so easily with people through, you know, how we do with social media and things like that, but back then they couldn't do it, obviously. So each organ in a town was like a pride and joy. So if a major church in a town would want the best instrument just for being, we've got this instrument here. So that's a nice sound. That's a new organ sound. I'm going to ask for 1 minute. I'm going to put my hair up because I'm pretty hot. Excuse me. It's getting hot in here. But that looks terrible. So each organ represented represented a town. Now, tuning back then is something that you've heard an orchestra tuning, right? They tune to A on the A, let me pull it out. This one will do. No, not that note, I want to dive in. They would tune to an A, the orchestra tuned to an A. That's standard now, but back then in the 1600s, they didn't know. They couldn't be consistent with this. So what the point of this long-winded explanation is that most instruments in different towns had different tunings. And that's why we had different tunings back then. So you can get one organ that's pitched at 440, which is the pitch we have now, or lower at 420. Does that make sense? Yeah, or even higher. So you have the great German builders, then you have moving across the border to France in the Romantic era, you have the organs built by Cavaillé-Coll, Aristide Cavaillé-Coll, one of my favorite organ builders. He was just stunning. He got a letter from Rossini, and he took that to Paris. And he was such an ambitious young man. I mean, ambitious, impatience, they go together. I don't think you're very patient if you're ambitious. He took that letter, and one of the big churches, Saint-Denis in Paris, needed a new organ. So he went to the people at the top, gave the letter from Rossini, and he got the job to build a new instrument, and that really put out all the other people who were so established in the town who thought they should have got the position to build this new instrument. That was his first major instrument in Saint-Denis, and I've played that instrument. There used to be an organist there, Pierre Pismal, and the organ is pretty much original. It goes back to, let me think now, 1840s, and it's pretty much the same. He was a typical Frenchman. He would sit at the organ bench, improvise, make it up, with a cigarette hanging out. Ash going everywhere down the pedal board, stomp it out, carry on playing. I mean, stunning music, light another cigarette, carry on. I mean, but you stand close to that instrument, like to the pipes, and it was like standing. Imagine a lion roaring at you. It was like that. It was just roared of the big reeds. And then when you went down into the building, it softened out. And Cavaillé-Coll had the knack of making an organ so perfect for a building. You know, he died bankrupt. He just put all his heart and soul into instruments. And he didn't make much money, but he left instruments now, like at Saint-Sulpice in Paris, still working, still a great instrument. One of his organs, Saint-Denis, part of Notre Dame. All the major churches in Paris he built for, and some organs in England, and some organs in Buenos Aires. There's a big French link down in Buenos Aires. So, let's think about the anatomy of an organ. We'll get to some music in a minute. So the organ, this is obviously based on a traditional pipe organ. You have the keyboards and you have the pedal board. On a pipe organ, you'd have what we call chambers where all the pipes live, which is a huge job in itself, looking after those pipes, tuning those pipes. And when you get a change in temperature, a lot like when you tune a piano, if your piano probably needs tuning twice a year, it should do. Shouldn't keep it next to a radiator. You could keep a humidifier by it, or plants or whatever, but you have to look after them carefully. If the weather changes in a church, or they forget to keep the heating at the same temperature, it will need tuning. And that's usually the job of an organ curator, and that is their job. They don't really play, they can play, but their job is to maintain that instrument. That organ there is what I'm sitting at with that one. That's got, actually, it's got 7 keyboards. There's another keyboard up here under the music rest. And this organ has, you see the things moving as I'm doing this now, the stops moving. That's what takes me hours to set up an organ, to create my sound palette for each piece. So if I'm playing some jazz, I'd want certain sounds. If I'm playing something very traditional like Bach, I would choose other sounds. That organ there in Atlantic City, which is, it's probably the largest organ in the world now. I played there 2 years ago, and for years, they didn't have the combinations working. So you had to operate, you see all the things on the side? The stops by hand. I literally had nightmares before I played that concert. I thought, how am I going to work this instrument? And I thought, I know what I can do. I can set different sounds on each keyboard and do it like that. And this is a true story. A week before the concert, I got an email, and they said, we've actually, in first time in history, got the combinations working. I mean, I was ecstatic. It just transformed the whole program. I could then set the organ up, play what I played Beethoven's Fifth, and I put a really, ambitious program together. I'm ambitious and impatient, yes I am. I put an ambitious program together, and it came to life. It is a phenomenal organ. That organ console is unique because there's no other organ like it in the world. Excuse me a minute. Cheers. It's coffee, all right? There's no other organ console like that in the world. So that console is a one-off. There are many consoles that are like this. They're kind of individualized to each building as to what are printed here on the sounds that you want. But that console, there's nothing like it in the world. It looks uncomfortable, but it's like sitting in a nice, cozy leather chair. It really is a snug organ. You sit there and you think, oh, this is not bad. You look at it, you think, oh my Lord, look at that. But you sit there and it's really comfortable, and the keyboards work, so the seventh keyboard is literally vertical. And you feel like a rock player, you know what I mean? Keyboards like that. And it's the acoustics in that building, because the hall, Atlantic City Convention Center, seats 20,000 people. Not that you ever get that for a concert, but the acoustics are huge, and it is really a musical instrument. So that is a very large pipe organ. This is an electronic organ, as you know, and it's one of the latest designs, greatest technology. Then you have an instrument called a hybrid organ, which is half and half. And you can actually go down that road maybe one day. You might want to add some organ pipes to this. I mean, that's what a hybrid is. It's half electronic and it is half, or not half, partly pipe. It gives it another dimension to sound. You have to hear them. It's hard to put that into words. So some of the great organs of the world, we've mentioned Notre Dame in Paris. That is probably one of the finest organs in the world. I mentioned that last night. You get to rehearse there when there are no tourists. So you go in there late at night, and you're let out the cathedral probably 4 o'clock in the morning. You're never allowed to play that organ on your own, because you just have to have somebody there watching you all the time. And you do need an assistant helping you at the console. It's very different from this, because it is such a big organ, and you can't have hours and hours on it. So you have somebody who really knows the instrument inside out. That's one of the great organs. Another great organ is St. Paul's Cathedral in London, the big dome. There's organs in that, organs referring to pipes. In the dome, there's some pipes. In the back of the cathedral, there's another division of the organ with the great en-chamade trumpets. So, for instance, if you're playing something like this, those big reeds will come from the way back of the cathedral, and those pipes are horizontal, and they're called chamades. And if you've probably seen Renaissance trumpet players who have trumpets like that, and they are powerful, you are not allowed to use those trumpets if the cathedral is open, because there's a gift shop right underneath it. People perusing what they want to take home, and then suddenly use those on chamades. Those poor people probably wouldn't last very long. Then another great organ is the organ in San Diego, the Spreckels organ, which, not because I played it, is actually a very fascinating organ. It's the largest outdoor organ in the world, built by Austin Organs, given to the city by John D. Spreckels. He was a sugar magnate for that part of the world, made a fortune. He absolutely loved organs. He had an organ in his home. He apparently discovered San Diego Bay by sailing down from San Francisco. Found the bay and decided this was a place he wanted to develop. So it's not just the organ pavilion. A lot of the buildings in San Diego were built by Spreckels. And then Disney Hall is another great instrument, the building designed by Frank Gehry, and that's amazing building. And the organ case was designed by Frank Gehry, and it's now had some very unfortunate names, that organ case. Literally, organ pipes usually sit regimentally like soldiers standing. Well, he has the organ pipes going in every direction, and some people have called it like a box of French fries, because you just tip them out and that's how they all go. But when you're in there and you play it, there are two consoles. There's one console right in the organ pipes. That is very different, because when you play that, you really hear the instrument. And then you have a movable console on the stage, which comes out, which you use for concerts. And when you play that, the instrument sounds very different because you're not so close to it. But you can gaze up and look at it, and they do the most beautiful lighting there. And it's just a stunning instrument. Another great organ, actually, just thought of, is the Royal Festival Hall in London. Played there 2 years ago. That is a very fiery organ. It was designed by British organ builder Ralph Downes, and it's very spicy organ. So let's look at some music now. I don't want to talk too much. So what am I gonna do? Oh, I know. So I'm just gonna recap one thing I did last night, just not the whole piece, it's too much. But, so organ music has its roots, real roots, in the voice, chant, singing. I mean, I love listening to Gregorian chant. It's just one of the most, well, you know what I mean. It's just makes you want to close your eyes and meditate and think and just. So the Te Deum theme, which is the theme, I'm going to play it to you now. That melody goes back, so does the Ave Maria, these Salve Regina. They're just beautiful, and if you hear people singing them, it's hard to recreate that on the organ sometimes, that beauty. I'm going to play a little excerpt from this. I know I made a joke of it last night. This goes back to, it was written in Paris, well, a published handwritten copy goes back to 1531. That's old, isn't it? Isn't that incredible? Let me just play you a little bit of that. Give you a rest from hearing me talk. I played last night. I'm going to play it all. That theme was taken by the composer Charles Tournemire. I think we've gone off. Have we? No, Charles Tournemire. He took that theme. He took 5 themes actually. He was born in 1870 and died in 1939. I did a lot of work on him when I was a student because I really love his music. He suffered from, I guess we'd call it now bipolar, really, actually. He really did have major depression, and he was found washed up on a beach. I mean, his ending was tragic. And yet, you can hear that in his music. You can hear the intense grief and anxiety, and then you can hear some real beautiful parts to it. And you can hear that, and I think composers give an insight into their whole personality when they present to us a piece of music. So that theme, so he improvised on that in the 1930s, straight onto the old 78. So you can imagine one night, I guess they didn't have so much traffic noises back then, so he could have done it, I don't know, he did it in the 1930s, so there would have been, I don't know. Anyway, so he recorded that. The piece is divided into sections which fits the side of an old 78 disc, right? So when you come to the end, I've forgotten how long it would go for. Does anybody know how long a 78 disc side would go for? That actually ties in with the music. So he would improvise for so long, and they'd probably say, "Stop now." Flip it over, he'd carry on. So that is a major constraint on what you do. But let me just play a little bit of that. See if you can hear the passion in his music. So he improvised on that theme. The great composers, the Romantic, the Franks. Actually, we've forgotten one very important piece. Actually, let's just look at a famous Renaissance piece. So Renaissance before Baroque. This gentleman's Tilman Susato. I love his music. I arranged these for organ, and there's an organ in Denmark at Frederiksberg Castle, and there's an instrument there that is a secular organ. We did a tour bus video on that very church. There's 3 organs in the church, and the little secular organ, which is a 2-manual instrument, goes back to the 1600s. The instrument was not intended to be used for church. It was intended as a dance instrument to play music for people to dance. And you'll hear it when I play this piece. It's one of the few remaining instruments left in the world. The great French organ builder, Cavaille Coll, looked at this instrument and he said, I can't do anything with that, it's perfect. He just looked at it and thought, yeah, that is amazing. It has the pedal board is ebony. The little stops, there's not many stops, there's very few stops. They're all like silver plated. Ebony keyboards, tiny little keyboards. The sounds are like buzzing reeds and funny little sounds, but it is just so cute. It is really lovely, and it has to be hand pumped. So you have to have somebody behind us. I've got a picture of me pumping that organ and somebody else was playing it. There's no other way. It's not powered by electricity. Somebody plays it. So if they get tired back there, you don't have any sound. So something like this piece of music is perfect for it. He had 2 wives and 20 children.
How many children?
20. But you know, the interesting and kind of sad thing is when he came to the end of his life, he was at St. Thomas in Leipzig, and that's where he's buried. And he was there for 27 years. I think it's 27 years, a long time. He was not happy there at that position. He never left Germany. He wasn't like Handel, who was born the same year, 1685. Bach died in 1750, Handel died in 1759. Handel was more worldly, shall we say, because he traveled a lot. He actually went to the UK and became British. Good man, I think, actually, there you go. And he wrote a lot of the Royal Fireworks music and Handel's water music. And he lived in the UK, wrote obviously the Messiah there. Bach stayed in Germany, totally different, totally into his life as a Christian. But he didn't enjoy being in Leipzig. He had to teach Latin to the children. It wasn't just playing the organ. I mean, he had about 5 churches to look after in Leipzig, and he used to run all the choirs and the music ensembles in each group. But you know what the sad story is, I think, to me, is he really never heard his, like, St. Matthew Passion or his great works done to the standard that we know today. Because the musicians back then, a lot of them didn't want to do anything. He had trouble with the boys singing in the choir. They didn't want to play the musical instruments. I mean, this is what I've read. So he had a lot of problems working with, you know, people who weren't that interested. So to me, for him not to have heard his own great music, I find that very, very, very sad. He was a phenomenal organist. He had 20 children. 3 of them were very famous: C.P. Bach, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, and Wilhelm Friedemann Bach. They actually became more famous than their father. Bach, in his later years, he lost his sight, and he was really regarded, it's tragic, I think, he was really regarded as old-fashioned and out of date. And it was Mendelssohn 100 years later who did the first performance of the St. Matthew Passion in Leipzig. That brought his music to the forefront of everybody who loved classical music. But he died not very well known. To me, that's pretty sad. But this piece here, and there is some question as to whether he wrote this piece of music, but we're going to say he did. Thank you. That was a very popular piece in San Diego. So the roles of musicians who work with organs, the main role is somebody like Sam. There's a huge demand for the work that he does. I mean, it's an incredible job. I chose the life of concerts because I just love playing different organs, playing concert repertoire. And I have worked in church, and I know exactly what he has to do, and it's a huge amount of work. It's not just playing, a bit like Emily, you know, it's not just she only works 1 hour a week when you do it's all the time. You live it. You just live it. You prepare for rehearsals. You train the choir. You prepare your own music or what you're going to play for a postlude. You get the hymns ready. You choose the music to fit in with the church year, and every year it changes. You know, it changes during the year, but then you start up again in the autumn, and you work through Advent, Christmas, Easter. And you sigh with relief in the summer to just have a break, but then it starts up again. And you're always trying to do new music to keep everybody interested. It is a hugely demanding job. And having an instrument like this, I'm sure, will make life enjoyable. I'm sure it will. This instrument can produce a choral effect. So if there you go, I've got it set up for this. This is the modern technology. I have memory banks so I can have different sounds for each piece of music. I don't know how many registrations I've set, but probably over 100, I'm sure. But something like this. Now, this does not replace a choir. Because these people in here, and there's a little bunch of them at the back of the organ, they don't know their words. Mind you, some choirs don't know their words really, do they? I mean, but they've got a good vocal technique, I think, but they still need to learn the text. Very gently make sure she's under expression. So let's just add a little bit of this. You hear the organ behind it there? A little bit more, not too much. So the organ is accompanying the choir now. I can actually put them down. I can bring in the basses. So, so I have played every type of music. We have Viscount produce a very interesting instrument called the Legend. And I was talking about the Hammond B3 last night, the iconic Hammond which Jimmy Smith played. For some reason, I don't know how it happened, should have asked Josh this, but the patent for the B3, Viscount got the patent for that instrument. So they have produced an instrument that looks exactly like, do you know what a Hammond B3 looks like, some of you? You've got to take, go and look at it. It's with the drawbars which produce the sounds electronically. They produced the exact replica of that with the Leslie cabinet. And I've got one at home, and you cannot tell the difference on the sound, and I'm really critical of organs. It is phenomenal. It is absolutely, and I took, because we relocated to the UK, and I took that instrument with us, and as you, there's different voltage in the UK. But it has two voltages on it, so it works brilliantly. Oh, I love this organ. I just love it. And my husband was a professional rock and roll drummer, and he still plays. So we just have real fun. So this is another piece that you would not play on a Sunday morning, unless you wanted a new job. Device which literally spins around, the sound goes in there and it spins around, which makes that sound. And when that's on fast, now when you got it going slow, it produces a different sound. So I set them both up now for this next piece. I did a recording on a Hammond many years ago, and I was loaned this Hammond with a Leslie cabinet, and it came out from a nightclub somewhere in London, and it had been there for a long time, and it was from what I now know, it must have been a very smoky nightclub with a lot of alcohol in there for sure, because when I turned that speaker on, I went from slow to fast. I got a whiff, a very strong whiff of smoke. So let's have a bit. quickly talk about it. It's a lot of travel, it's a lot of fun, because every organ is different, and that's it, like people. Like, dare I say that some people you want to not ever see again. It's the same for organs. You think, oh, that was terrible. I remember the great organs I've played, and I remember the bad organs I've had to play. But I usually like 3 days on an instrument, because you need to know it. I mean, each instrument is totally different. The room is different. You know, the whole surrounding is different. It takes me a long time to learn a different instrument. And rehearsal times, if you're in big places like Disney Hall, you have to fit in with orchestral rehearsals. Jet lag is a great thing that gets in the way sometimes. Repertoire, you have to often, like when I played at the Royal Festival Hall, they like to, places like Disney Hall, and Notre Dame, Paris, especially Notre Dame, Paris. I wasn't even allowed to do a transcription of Debussy. I thought, God, that would have sounded gorgeous. Some of you know the engulfed cathedral, right? I wanted to play that. No transcriptions here, please. Pure organ music, so I let that one go. And you sometimes have to work with things like that and what you have to play and rehearsing, but I wouldn't do anything else. I've been traveling all my life, and I just love meeting people, and I love meeting new organs. So that's pretty much it, actually. I'm going to play one more piece, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. This is a piece I wrote. It's called Quick Fix Toccata. It's designed for the organist who wants to leave church quickly on a Sunday. A couple of questions now. I did mention it. What do you think is the largest organ in the world? As if you are paying attention now. What do you think is the largest organ in the world? Yes. Did you say that? Who said that, Lana? Yes. Oh, there you go. Name a romantic organ builder from anywhere in the world. Who said what? Yes, that's fine. That's very good. Okay. Actually, put your hand up. Name a French romantic organ composer. Can you put your hand out? Could I go? Sorry? Rosie. Oh, Rossini. Yes, okay. French. Okay. This is an easy one. Name a German, what have I got? I'm going to say organ builder. It's a tough one, actually. Oh, perfect. There you go. Art Schnittke. I'd have liked to have met him. And the last one, name a composer who was extremely religious and wrote a lot of music for the church. That's pretty easy. Okay, so I got no. All right, not Bach. Who said Handel? Sorry? They all come at once. Put your hand up. Handel. Actually, do have 2 CDs left, so I'm going to think of another one. Okay, one more. Besides Wurlitzer, which was a great answer actually, name another American organ builder. No. He did the case. I'm going to give you a CD. I want an organ builder. Yes. You got the lot, haven't you? Skinner, yes. Okay. Do you have any questions for moi? Oh boy. Emily, you go first.
So I was curious, what is the most requested piece for you to play when you
The Flight of the Bumblebee.
Is that the most requested?
Yes, I played it.
Yeah.
I know.
What about the Viva Toccata? Is that?
Yes, not so much. No, so it is actually. We recorded that years ago at West Point, and it's had millions of views. It's just one of those things, and of course I have to live with that now. Yes.
Could you tell us about your very early experiences with the organ, how you felt and how you got introduced to it?
Sure.
Obviously it became a lifelong passion, but was it like an instant passion?
Yes, I could read music before I had piano lessons. Well, actually, I was sent to dance classes, and I wasn't very good. I liked the bottle of Coke and bag of crisps, but I didn't want to do my pliés and all that stuff. But I listened to the piano, and I was like glued to the side of the piano. So my mother and father bought a $10 piano. Back then you could get a piano with the candlesticks, and I just took to it. Then my aunt bought a Hammond organ, and that was it. And I knew then I had to do this. And I had a lot of, even at the Royal Academy of Music, they tried to persuade me not to be a concert artist. They said, no, it's too risque. It's not very secure. And it isn't a secure business, but I've always been stubborn and ambitious and impatient, but there's no way I was going to change. So they tried to put me into teaching music, and I didn't want to teach, I wanted to play. So I've always kind of known. There's a great story, Debussy had a student, and it's true, and the student goes to him asks him at the end of a composition lesson. He says, "Excuse me, sir," I'm not going to do the French accent, "should I be a composer?" And Debussy looks at him and says, "No. You're good, but no." And the student says, "Well, why not?" "Because you don't know." Because you don't know you should be a composer. And that's if somebody's in doubt, they shouldn't be doing it. Okay, next question.
What do you think will come from the combining of electronic organ and artificial intelligence?
Oh gosh. That is scary already, isn't it? It is very scary. I think I'm being selfish now, but I'm all right time-wise. But the next generation, even now for like writing a song, I mean, I haven't done this myself, but you can tell AI, I want a love song, I want the voice of the style to so-and-so, I want it 2 minutes long, and I want words like this. And it will come up with something in a flash. I've looked at AI for ideas like when I've been writing something, and you sometimes ask it to write something for you, but I never like it. It's always, to me, very flamboyant. I think it's got a long way to go. I mean, there's something not human there, but it's very scary, I think, actually. Like self-drive cars. I don't know, I don't want to get in one. I mean, but musicians, I think we could have limited time for things, because if you can get something done without a live person, it's either going to go very, I don't like using the word badly because it's negative, it's either going to go that way or it's going to swing right back. I don't know. I'm not too happy about it. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Your
Pleasure.
talent is unbelievable last night and what you demonstrated today. I guess my question is a little bit more of a kind of a technique and technical question
Sure.
for you in terms of your talent. I mean, I think the organ, if I'm not mistaken, is probably the only instrument where you're using all four extremities, your feet and your hands all together. I notice your music, which seems to have, which you pull out for each piece, seems to have annotations on it that you made for certain things. And between the three keyboards, the pedals, all of the stops that you have, I mean, how you're able to coordinate all of that. And I did notice both last night and even today that you have the music, but you're not staring at the music. You're sort of referencing, but you're kind of going almost like you know where to go and keeping track of all the keyboards. So it's kind of amazing to me. I'm just wondering, when you learn the organ and all of these techniques, how do you maintain that dexterity and the technique of how you use the music together, you remember where the keyboards are and so on, and all the buttons you got to push that create the sound effects. The difficulty of doing that and mastering that, particularly when you go to different organ sites that maybe have slightly different aspects to them.
Well, the first thing for dexterity, I work out, because I think that keeps the circulation going, and the brain. If the brain goes, you haven't got any circulation, I don't think. So it's important to keep the brain active, but exercise is vital. What I have here on my score, I mean, when my own pieces of music, I have a sketch because it is in my head, so I know what I'm going to play. The numbers refer to each instrument, so that, to me, I glance up and I see the numbers, and I know I've got to push which combination here and which memory level on the instrument I'm using. That is why I have my scores. So it just refreshed me, because every layout of an organ is very different. So that's why I have that. And as you do it more and more in life, you know, it does become easier, but you still have to spend a long time learning where everything is. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. In fact, I think you practiced this week 2 or 3 days.
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. I learned the instrument. I didn't practice. I mean, I was practicing. Yeah, I was learning, because in here you probably didn't see, you have an extra little drawer, and it's not for peppermints or anything like that. That's part of the instrument, which gets into the technology of the instrument. That takes a lot of my time. But once that is set up, I don't need it out.
When you were 5, how did your feet even reach pedals?
Oh, you can get pedal extensions. We used to use that in San Diego, because we used to do one concert a year for the youngsters, and I get the youngsters to do a concert. There's a little extension that clips up. So, for instance, the push of the pedal would be up here, because there would be an extension on it, so they could get it. So, I guess I was pretty tall. Yes.
Is that why you have the printout of the music?
Yes.
Because for every
Yes, yes. I don't like iPads yet. I've tried and I've used them, and I use them for filming, but I've had iPads. Sam uses an iPad, but you can have a lot of your music on an iPad, and it makes a lot of sense, really, because you wouldn't have to carry so much around. But I've had them go, where they just gone, and I've worked with musicians where they've suddenly turned 2 pages by mistake. You can do it with a facial expression, a wink. But I mean, I had the iPad set up for a wink, and I wink very well on my left side. I don't wink very well on my right side, but I'd find out that it wouldn't do it straight off. I had to do it, close it down, start again, and then it would go. And then sometimes it would turn 2 pages. So yes, I'm kind of old-fashioned like that. Yes?
I wonder if you could play a bit of Bach's pedal exercise to demonstrate the bass sound in the speakers here.
So what do you want me to actually play? Just some of the sounds on down here? Yeah. Okay, let's have a go. So the pitch of a piano is 8 foot, right? So if I play middle C, you play middle C on the piano, they would be the same pitch. The pitch on the pedal board, if I played that note, but it would sound an octave lower. So, because it is the bass of the instrument, like the bass, I'm sorry my back's to you, but it's kind of easy. It is the basses of the orchestra, it's the double basses and cellos. So, for instance, there's a 16 foot. So that gives you fundamental sounds down there. So if I'm holding a chord with my right hand, let me just pull out some nice stops. That gives me, I'm using a C minor 6 chord, and I've got a C in the bass. That gives me the bass. If I want to have more of a pedal sound, I would add the 8 foot. So let me just, there's the 16 foot. Here are the 8s. Now I'm going to add a 4 foot. Those are all diapason sounds. They're just fluty sounds. Here is a mixture, which is a combination of shrilly sounds. Here are the reeds. That's a 16-foot reed, an 8-foot reed, a 32-foot reed, which doesn't go on very much. So if I want to play chords on the pedal, that was just each note separately with a toe. If I want to play a chord down there, I would use the 8 foots and now I can take the sounds from the keyboards down to the pedals. For instance, I'm going to push in all those bass sounds. I'm going to take some sounds on the main keyboard, which is the grate. I'm going to put that to take those sounds down there. So if I start adding that all together, the sounds from the keyboards, each keyboard can go down to the pedal board. Okay. All righty, yes? That was a look, wasn't it? All right, and then should we call it a day?
We'll end with that, and then we'll hear that, and then we can have some refreshments.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
You are
Are you okay playing this?
Yeah.
You know your least favorite? Play the movie.
I've never played it twice at a venue. Let me see which designated areas.